If there is one topic in the field of women's health that has the most contradictory recommendation, it is the cholesterol conversation. Dr. Zoe Harcombe, a world renowned researcher and speaker in the field of diet and health, is back for part two, where we tackle the cholesterol debate head on. And if you missed the first part of our interview called What You Were Told About Red Meat, Saturated Fats, and the Mediterranean Diet is Wrong, I will link it below. Dr. Zoe has a PhD in dietary fat guidelines. And when one of her PhD papers went viral, becoming the 64th most impactful article amongst the millions published in any and all subject areas in 2015, she caught the attention of the media. Newspapers covered the article extensively to the point that Dr. Zoe had to turn her phone to silent overnight for many years. She has been advocating for the truth about cholesterol for over a decade. So I started our conversation by asking her a very important question. Why is it that there's no such thing as bad cholesterol?
The chemical formula for cholesterol is C27H46O, full stop. There is no good version, there's no bad version. That is the chemical formula for cholesterol. If you want to Google it, it will confirm that. It will show you a picture of the structure of cholesterol. That is cholesterol. Now, cholesterol is just so utterly life vital. As I said earlier, it's so life vital that the body doesn't rely that you could eat it. The body is actually making it all the time. The liver particularly is making it. Each cell has the capacity to make cholesterol. If we removed cholesterol from me and you right now, we would be puddles on the floor because cholesterol forms the structure of every single cell in our body. So we would just have no structure. We would have no form. We would not exist. We would, beyond that, there'd be no sex, there'd be no procreation. It's just impossible to describe how absolutely fundamental to life cholesterol is. So why do we demonize this thing? Well, that's a great question. And I find myself banging my head against the wall quite often saying, why would you demonize something that is so completely and utterly life vital? The only answer that I can come up with is because it is phenomenally lucrative to do so.
Yeah.
Once we worked out that we could lower cholesterol, one cholesterol alone, Lipitor, so it's one statin that lowers cholesterol, Lipitor, made by Pfizer, has earned something like $180 billion during its lifetime. I mean, we are talking eye-watering sums because we have worked out how to lower cholesterol. And remember, cholesterol is cholesterol, it's just whatever. So let's do a little bit of sort of cholesterol 101. If I took this water here and I got some olive oil, so that's water, and the olive oil is a fat. So if I drop the olive oil into the water, it would separate. You'd see the olive oil sat on the top of the water. They don't mix. And that's exactly the same as lipids, fats, in the bloodstream. The bloodstream is like water and the lipids are like the olive oil. So we can't just dump lipids into the bloodstream because the bloodstream doesn't know how to transport them around. And yet we need lipids travelling around the bloodstream to do their vital work. Cholesterol is one of those lipids. There's also phospholipids, there are proteins, and there are triglycerides, which we also know as very low density lipoproteins. So we have these what I call taxis. So a lipoprotein is a taxi, which is a transportation system around the body, and it's water friendly on the outside, so it can go through the bloodstream. Sorry, this keeps falling out of my ear. It's water friendly on the outside and it's fat friendly on the inside, so it can contain all of those lipids on the inside that I've mentioned: the protein, phospholipids, cholesterol and triglycerides. And there are 5 major carriers of those lipids, and in order of size they are chylomicrons, very low density lipoproteins, intermediate density lipoproteins, IDLs, low density lipoproteins, LDLs, and high density lipoproteins, HDLs. So LDL, they call LDL bad cholesterol. It's not even cholesterol, it's a lipoprotein. It is a carrier of cholesterol, but it's also a carrier of those 3 other things. So all of those 5 carriers, all of those 5 taxis that I've mentioned, all carry the same passengers: the cholesterol, phospholipids, protein and triglycerides, just in differing proportions. So the low density lipoprotein is carrying those 4 things. So LDL cholesterol is the cholesterol in the low density lipoprotein. It's the passenger cholesterol in the lipoprotein taxi. And HDL cholesterol is the same cholesterol, exactly the same cholesterol, same formula, but it's in an HDL taxi. So the LDL is going out around the body to deliver its vital cargo to the cells that need it, which is why cells, as it goes, travels along in the bloodstream, cells have what we call LDL receptors. So as the little taxi goes through, the LDL receptor will grab the little taxi and the cell will say, I need your cargo, great, drop off here, I'm going to take the cargo out and then I'm going to dump it back into the bloodstream. And then the HDL taxi is kind of scavenging and picking up anything that was unused and then taking it back to the liver. Now, the people who tell you that cholesterol is bad for you will say, oh, it's the HDL is good because it's taken it back to the liver to get rid of it. No, it's taken it back to the liver to recycle it because cholesterol is so valuable. And there's other apolipoproteins and other things that we won't get into. There's other things that are really, really valuable to the body. So it's all going back to the liver to be recycled. So this idea that there is even good and bad cholesterol, let alone that LDL is cholesterol, HDL is cholesterol, is just so completely and utterly bonkers. You just don't even know where to start. And then it's like, well, they've worked out how to reduce LDL cholesterol. And yes, they're doing that. I mean, statins will lower LDL cholesterol. Of that, there is no doubt. The debate is that a good idea? The body's trying to make cholesterol. You're taking this drug that is going to impair the body's ability to make that cholesterol. And if you look at something called the mevalonate pathway, which is the pathway by which the body makes cholesterol, if you get down to sort of the bottom of that pathway, you've got a substance called CoQ10, which is also called the body's energy spark plug. And statins sort of work up at this level on the mevalonate pathway. So yes, they're impairing the body's ability to make cholesterol, but they're also impairing the body's ability to make CoQ10, which is why people find that they suffer from fatigue and muscle ache and muscle pain and all the rest of it, because you kind of cut out the body's energy spark plug quite a bit. You don't stop the production of cholesterol totally. If taking a statin stopped the production of cholesterol totally, remember, we'd be a puddle on the floor, we would cease to exist. The first person who took a statin would have been the last person to take a statin because they would have died instantly, and it would be like, okay, this is not a good idea. So it doesn't stop it totally, but it does absolutely impair the body's ability to make cholesterol. So you take a statin, your cholesterol levels go down, your total cholesterol goes down, your LDL cholesterol goes down, because your total cholesterol is made up of LDL, the cholesterol in the LDL cholesterol, the cholesterol in the HDL taxi, that's your HDL cholesterol, and you've then got this bizarre thing called the Friedewald equation. Oh, you use mg over dl, don't you, for cholesterol? So I think it's then your triglycerides divided by 5, which would end up being your total cholesterol. So take a statin. Yes, it's going to reduce your total cholesterol. It's going to reduce your LDL cholesterol. It may well have an impact on your HDL cholesterol as well. Probably won't impact your triglycerides because that's actually more related to the carbohydrate that you eat, which adds a different complexity to it. But yeah, they will reduce your cholesterol. But if you look at the adverse events, look in the patient leaflet and look at the things that up to 1 in 10 people are likely to experience, or even more than 1 in 10 people are likely to experience, type 2 diabetes is one of them. One of the known adverse effects of taking statins is, I think it's about 1 in 10 are likely to suffer muscle problems, and about 1 in 50, I think it is, are likely to develop type 2 diabetes. That's a pretty serious side effect. From my perspective, this is my opinion, just to keep your doctor happy that your cholesterol is a particular number that your doctor has been trained to believe is better than the number that you have previously. Don't know what my cholesterol is, don't care. Not a marker that is important to me in any way, shape or form. I don't go for blood tests. If I did, I would be interested in my fasting insulin, my HbA1c, metabolic markers, not interested in what my lipid markers are at all. I'd be interested in my triglycerides maybe, but just not interested in what my
Yeah.
cholesterol would be at all.
Brilliant explanation.
Thank you.
And in the same lines of low and high, right? One of your very interesting notes, and I'll link it below this video as well, that you have this beautiful graph showing what is high and low cholesterol and how what we now consider normal or ideal is a fairly low number. So talk to us a little bit about from the perspective of the research and everything, what is really this range of, let's quotation say, normal cholesterol?
Yeah, good question, actually. I remember first looking at, if you go on my site, zoeharcombe.com, and put in the word normal in the search box, I think the first post that I did on this would probably now be more than 10 years old. And I remember at the time really struggling to find what was normal cholesterol before they started giving statins to so many people. Because, of course, the more you statinate people, the more you reduce the total cholesterol in the average population. It was definitely around, in our L per litre terms, because that's the numbers that we work in, it was between 7 and 8. So I don't know if you're able to translate that into the mg per dl. But they tell us that we should be having a total cholesterol below 5. So the norm, the peak of the normal distribution, the norm was around 7 to 8. So on a normal distribution, you will have some people with a total cholesterol level around 3, and you'll have some people with a total cholesterol around 10. And that they're all normal. They're all on the normal distribution. It's just the peak of the normal distribution is where you see the most people. So the most common area to be in was around that sort of 7 to 8. The most common area now is definitely going to be around 5 or 6, because they've just managed to shift the whole population downwards. But it's not just on cholesterol. And it's why I have this real sort of issue of, follow the money. So much of this is driven by the pharmaceutical industry. If they can get guidelines changed, we've just had new guidelines for ASCVD, atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease over in the US. If they can get new guidelines set saying, oh, your total cholesterol should be this, your LDL cholesterol should be this, they can just capture more people who then fall into your doctor must statinate you, otherwise you're going to fail all of these targets. But they've done exactly the same with blood pressure. And they'll start doing the same with glucose. So it's sort of like, oh, you're pre-diabetic. That actually might be a good one, because I think flagging that you've got higher levels of glucose in the blood, I actually think that probably is a good idea. But not if they start giving people metformin, rather than saying to them, you really need to start cutting the carbohydrate level in your diet, even what you think of as good carbohydrate. But blood pressure, just quickly, 140 over 90 is the true population norm. So they called 140 over 90 high quite a few years ago, and now it's, oh, we really want you to be around 120 over 80. It's that's heading towards getting quite low. There used to be a rule of thumb that your systolic blood pressure, the first of the two numbers, should, as a guide of thumb, be 100 plus your age. So if you're a 50-year-old female, 150 for your first number. Why do you want blood pressure to be higher as you get older? And there are several reasons. Here's two really good ones for starter. One is your arteries are inevitably going to become less flexible as you get older. You can call it stiffening if you want. Everything stiffens as you get older. I don't bounce out of bed like a 15-year-old as you get older, kind of thing. Everything stiffens a bit. So if your arteries are stiffening a bit, then you need more pressure in the vascular system to be pumping that blood around effectively, so that all your digits are kept warm and just all the blood is getting to all the places where you want it to get to. That's one reason. Another reason is you do not want low blood pressure as you get older, because low blood pressure makes you fall over. I've got terribly low blood pressure, so I'm lucky sometimes if my blood pressure is over 100, over about 60. Sometimes it's 90 over 50 or something. It's terrible. So if I'm out gardening and then I stand up, I see stars and the world starts spinning, and I have to, sometimes I even just kneel back down on the ground to make sure that I don't fall over. That's dangerous as you get older, because a fall, as you'll know as a practitioner, a fall can be the beginning of the end. In an elderly person, they
Yeah.
fall, then they break something, then they go into hospital, then they get a hospital infection, then they don't respond to the antibiotics, then they get pneumonia, and then suddenly granny doesn't come out of the hospital, and all she had was a fall at home, and she was in good health other than that fall. So we want higher blood pressure as we get older. We also, I would say, want higher cholesterol as we get older, because 25% of the body's cholesterol is up in your brain. Now, is that related to how we think, how sharp we are, avoiding dementia, avoiding cognitive impairment? I don't know, but I'm not taking any chances. I'm not going to, if you read a book by Dwayne Graveline, who was an astronaut, and his book title was Lipitor Thief of Memory. As an astronaut, his doctor, how smart are you as an astronaut? How much information do you retain? And then his doctor put him on statins because he was worried about his cholesterol. Dwayne went out into the car park and he couldn't even remember where he'd left his car. And then somebody said, well, maybe come off the statins, then everything just came back. But it doesn't
Mm,
always come back. You go on statins,
yeah.
you are not necessarily going to recover the muscle performance and the cognitive performance that you had before you went on the statin. This is my view. This is not medical advice, but this is my opinion. And I think it doesn't hurt for people to be aware that there are other views of cholesterol out there and not just the one that emanates from the statin pharmaceutical industry.
What did you think about this eye-opening conversation? Let me know in the comments what resonated. And if you want to check any of Dr. Zoe's blog posts that we mentioned during this interview, I will link them all below this video. And go watch part 1 of our interview, where we dive deep into the truth behind dietary guidelines, whether or not fruits, veggies, and whole grains are actually essential for a healthy diet, and the truth about saturated fats and red meat, and my favorite, why the Mediterranean diet you've heard all about isn't even real. I hope you enjoyed.